I signed the NDA because they told me it was just paperwork, a standard confidentiality agreement, a protection clause, a way to keep sensitive land survey data from reaching the public before the Forest Service had verified it. That was the lie. The real reason they made us sign was because we walked into a part of the forest that is not supposed to exist. And when we came back, there were fewer of us than when we went in. Not missing, not dead. Worse than that, removed from reports, from photographs, from memory. Before I tell you what happened, tell me where you are listening from tonight. And if this story pulls you in, leave a like so more people who enjoy slow, disturbing park ranger stories can find it. My name is Elias Ward. For 9 years, I worked as a field ranger for the Hollow Pine National Forest. Hollow Pine sits in the northern interior, far enough from major highways that most people only know it from old fire maps, hunting forums, and the kind of hiking blogs written by people who think isolation makes them spiritual. It is not a famous forest. There are no postcard waterfalls, no massive tourist lodges, no gift shops selling stuffed bears and ranger hats. Just ridges, cedar bottoms, cold rivers, abandoned service roads, and thousands of acres of trees so dense that aircraft shadows disappear before they touch the ground. Most of my job was ordinary: checking permits, inspecting campsites, clearing stormfall, assisting search teams when people overestimated their own sense of direction. I believed in ordinary dangers: weather, exposure, bad decisions, loose rock, fast water, panic. Those are enough to kill a person in the woods. You do not need monsters when hypothermia can do the job quietly. That was how I thought before Sector Ash 17. The name sounds official. It was not. At least not in the way most things are official. No public map showed it. No visitor brochure mentioned it. No trailhead pointed toward it. No dispatch screen displayed it as an active management zone. But inside the district office, in a locked drawer beneath old fire history binders, there was a gray folder labeled ASH-17, no survey data available. I first saw that folder on a Monday morning in late October. The kind of morning where the fog sits low over the parking lot and every vehicle in the ranger yard looks abandoned. I had just finished a storm damage report when District Supervisor Helen Marr called me into her office. Helen was not the kind of supervisor who wasted words. She had worked wildfire, search and rescue, timber conflicts, and 2 federal investigations before taking Hollow Pine. People called her cold. She was not cold. She was careful. There is a difference. When I walked in, she was standing beside her desk with 3 people I did not know. One was a land survey specialist named Dr. Mara Voss. Mid-40s, short black hair, calm eyes, field jacket too clean to belong to our district. One was a federal incident coordinator named Cal Rourke. Heavy build, gray beard, hands folded in front of him like he was already tired of explaining things to people. The third was a young GIS technician named Owen Lark. He had a laptop bag, a nervous smile, and the look of someone who had spent more time with satellite maps than real mud. Helen closed the door behind me. Then she locked it. That was the first thing that felt wrong. She said, "Elias, before we brief you, you need to sign this." She placed a packet on the desk: non-disclosure agreement, federal land management confidentiality, operational security, data protection. I skimmed the first page, then the second. By the third, I looked up. "This is not standard." Cal Rourke said, "No." I looked at Helen. She did not soften it. "You can refuse." "What happens if I refuse?" "You go back to your report. You never hear about this again." That should have been my warning. Instead, it made me curious. Curiosity is the cleanest trap in the world. It does not feel like danger. It feels like responsibility. I signed. Mara Voss watched my pen move across the page. When I finished, she opened the gray folder. Inside was a map of Hollow Pine. Not the public map, not even the internal fire access map. This one had layers I had never seen. Survey grids, historic timber claims, soil data, old aerial references. Decommissioned access roads. Near the eastern interior was a gray square, perfectly square. No contour lines inside it, No rivers, no canopy index, no elevation data, just blank gray. Mara tapped it with one finger. This is Sector Ash 17. I leaned closer. That area should be Cedar Basin. Helen said, that is what the public map calls the surrounding region. No, I mean I have been through Cedar Basin. Mara looked at me carefully. Have you? I opened my mouth to answer, then stopped, because I could picture the roads around it. The old fire break, the creek crossing, the ridge line south of the basin, the hunting boundary. But the center of the area was hazy in my mind. Not forgotten exactly, more like my memory had walked around it without noticing. I said I must have. Cal Rourke slid another sheet across the desk. It was a satellite image. Hollow pine from above. The surrounding forest was crisp, tree canopy, ridge shadows, old logging scars. But inside the gray square, the image broke. Not cloud cover, not blur. A flat, colorless smudge, as if someone had rubbed that part of the forest with a thumb. Mara said, every image taken of that sector shows some version of this. Sensor problem? We thought so. How many satellites? 6. How many years? 27. I looked at the image again. What do you need me for? Helen answered. Ground access. Cal said, we sent in 2 contracted surveyors last week. The room became very quiet. I waited. He continued. They returned after 5 hours. One was unable to describe where they had been. The other insisted there had been a third member on their team. I looked from Cal to Helen. Was there? Helen said, no. Mara opened another page. A field report, 2 signatures, but there was space between them. A blank line where a third signature might have been. No name, no ink. Just the faint indentation of writing pressed into paper. Mara said, the surveyor who claimed there was a third person remembered his name for 12 minutes. Owen Lark shifted in the corner. Mara continued. Then he could only remember that there had been someone. By the next morning, he denied saying it. I stared at the blank line. What was the name? No one answered. That was the second warning. I should have asked why they still wanted to go in. I should have walked out. Instead, I said, what is the assignment? Mara said, escort and perimeter verification. We are not attempting a full survey. Cal added, we enter, confirm boundary behavior, recover any equipment from the contracted team if possible, then leave. Boundary behavior? Mara pulled out a smaller map. Ash 17 was marked with a red outline. Around the outline were handwritten notes. Compass drift, GPS null, audio loss, visual repeat, memory inconsistency. I read the last one twice. Memory inconsistency. It sounded clinical. It sounded manageable. That is how dangerous things enter official language. They wear calm words. We left the next morning. There were 6 of us, me, Helen Marr, Dr. Mara Voss, Cal Rourke, Owen Lark, and Ranger Silas Boone. Silas had been with Holopine longer than I had. He was quiet, broad-shouldered, and practical in the way that only people who have spent too many winters outside become practical. He did not ask many questions. When Helen told him to pack for 2 days and say nothing to anyone, he packed for 3 and said nothing. We drove east before sunrise in 2 trucks. The sky was dark purple over the tree line. Fog lay in the low places. Nobody talked much. Owen tried once. He said, so is this like a classified ecological zone? Cal looked at him through the rearview mirror. No. Owen waited for more. None came. At 7:14 a.m., we reached a decommissioned service road blocked by a rusted gate. I knew the gate, or thought I did. The number stamped into the metal should have been E41. Instead, it read a -17. The paint looked old, older than the gate. I pointed it out to Helen. She took a photo. The photo showed E-41. I watched her check the screen. Then the gate. On the gate, a -17. On the camera, E-41. Helen did not react. She simply wrote it down. That was when I began to understand the kind of day we were going to have. We unlocked the gate and drove another 4 miles. The road narrowed until branches scratched both sides of the trucks. At 8:02, both GPS units lost signal. At 8:06, Owen's tablet rebooted itself. At 8:11, my wrist compass spun once and settled, pointing behind me. Not north, behind me. No matter how I turned, the needle slowly followed until it pointed at my chest. Mara saw me looking. She said, "Put it away." I did. At 8:19, the road ended. Not faded, ended. Gravel stopped in a clean line across the ground. Beyond it was forest, unbroken, no old tire ruts, no brush corridor, no cut stumps. Just trees standing where a road should have continued. Silas stepped out of the second truck and looked at the tree line. "That is new." Helen asked, "You have been here?" He nodded. "Years ago. Road kept going another mile." "Are you sure?" Silas did not look at her. "I'm sure enough to hate that question." We continued on foot. Mara gave each of us a paper tag with our name printed in black. She told us to pin it to the outside of our jacket. Owen smiled nervously. "Like a field trip?" Mara said. "Like a reminder." Then she handed out waterproof notebooks. "Write your name on the first page, current date, current time, then write the names of everyone present." Cal said, "Do it exactly." So we did. Elias Ward, October 23rd, 8:31. A.M. present, Helen Marr, Murrah Voss, Cal Rourke, Owen Lark, Silas Boone. I wrote the names carefully. Then Mara said, "Do not write your name again once we cross the boundary." I looked up. Why? Because repeated self-identification inside the sector appears to accelerate record instability. Owen blinked. "That sentence is insane." Mara said, "Yes." No one laughed. The boundary was not marked by a fence. No sign, no tape, no dramatic line. Just a section of forest where the trees changed. On our side, cedar and spruce. Ahead, ash. That was unusual enough. Ash trees did not dominate that part of Holopine. But there they were. Tall, pale trunks, gray bark, bare branches holding no leaves, though autumn had not stripped the rest of the forest yet. They stood in rows too, even to be natural. Not plantation rows, not human rows. Something less obvious. Something you only noticed after staring too long and realizing the spaces between trunks were almost identical. Helen checked her watch. "Boundary entry, 8:43. Mara raised a recorder. "Team entering Ash 17 at 08:43. The recorder light went red, then immediately died. She tried again. Nothing. Cal said, "Paper only from here." We crossed. The first sensation was pressure. Not wind, not sound. Pressure. Like walking into a room where people had just stopped talking. The forest inside Ash 17 was quiet, but not empty. Quiet can be peaceful. This was attentive. Every step felt observed. Owen looked back after less than a minute. I did too. The cedars behind us were gone. Not hidden by distance. Gone. Behind us stood more ash trees. Same pale trunks, same spacing. The way back had become identical to the way forward. Silas whispered something under his breath. Cal heard him. "What?" Silas shook his head. "Nothing useful." Helen took a strip of orange flagging from her pocket and tied it around a branch. Mara said, "We tried that." Helen tied it anyway. We walked 20 more yards. Another strip of orange flagging hung from a branch ahead of us. Same knot, same tear in the end. Helen stopped. No one touched it. Behind us, the branch she had marked was bare. Owen said, "That is not possible." Mara said, "Do not use that phrase in here." He looked at her. "Why?" "Because you will run out of it." We kept moving. The ground under the ash trees was too clean. No underbrush, no fallen limbs, no thick leaf litter, just gray soil and exposed roots twisting across it like veins. After 15 minutes, we found the first survey marker. A metal stake with pink tape. One of the contractors must have placed it. Mara knelt beside it. The tag number read S-4. She checked her notes. They placed S-1 through S-3 before reporting disorientation. Cal looked around. "Where are the first three?" No one answered. Silas pointed to the ground beside the stake. There were boot prints, 2 sets. The contractor's probably. The prints circled the marker several times, then headed deeper into the ash. Beside them was a 3rd set, smaller, barefoot, adult-sized maybe. The toes were long, too long. Owen took a step back. Animal? I looked at the print. 5 toes, heel, arch, human enough to be worse than not human. The barefoot tracks followed the contractor's boot prints for 6 steps, then moved between them, then ahead of them, then vanished. Mara sketched the pattern in her notebook. Helen watched the trees. That was when I noticed something else. There were no birds, no insects, no distant wind. But from somewhere far off, there was a soft mechanical clicking. Not radio, not footsteps, more like an old slide projector changing frames. Click. Pause. Click. Pause. Owen heard it too. What is that? Mara said. We do not know. Is it bad? Cal looked at him. We also do not know. I did not like how honest everyone was becoming. We moved toward the estimated center of the sector. Without GPS, Mara navigated using old bearing notes and pace count. Helen and Silas marked time. Cal watched our rear. Owen carried the equipment pack and checked his tablet every few minutes, even though it remained blank. At 9:27, we found the cabin. That was not in any briefing. Mara stopped so suddenly Owen nearly walked into her. Ahead of us, between the ash trees, stood a small wooden building. 1 room, low roof, no windows, door hanging open. The wood had gone silver with age, no chimney, no foundation. It looked like something built by hand a century ago and forgotten, but the ground around it was clean. No fallen branches on the roof, no moss on the steps, no rot in the doorframe. Helen said, "This was not in the contractor report." Mara was pale. "It was not in any report." Silas said, "Then we do not enter." Cal turned to him. "We need to inspect it." "No, we need to leave." Helen looked at Silas. "You know something?" Silas kept his eyes on the open doorway. "My grandfather trapped these woods before they were federal land. He used to talk about a house with no shadow." Owen looked at the cabin. It had a shadow, long and dark across the gray soil. Then the sun shifted behind cloud. The shadows of the ash trees moved slightly. The cabin's shadow did not. It pointed in the wrong direction. Mara wrote that down. Cal removed a flashlight from his vest. "We inspect from the threshold. Nobody enters unless I say." That sounded reasonable. Danger often does. We approached slowly. The cabin smelled dry. Not dusty, not rotten. Dry, like paper kept too long in a sealed drawer. Inside was a table, 1 chair, a metal filing cabinet, and every wall was covered in photographs. At first I thought they were old Ranger photos. Black and white, faded color, Polaroids, printouts, ID-style headshots. Then I recognized Helen. Her photograph was on the left wall. Not current, younger, maybe from 20 years ago. But definitely Helen. Beside it was Silas, then Mara, then Cal, then Owen, then me. My photo was not one I had ever seen. I was standing among ash trees, looking over my shoulder, mouth slightly open as if someone had just called my name. I stepped back from the doorway. Helen whispered, "Nobody goes in." Mara's breathing had changed. She pointed at the filing cabinet. The drawer was labeled "Return Personnel" under it, in smaller letters. Partial. Owen said, "I don't understand." Silas answered before anyone else could. "That is the point. Something moved inside the cabin. Not visible. A shift in the dark. The chair scraped back from the table. No one touched it." Mara said, "Back away." We did. The chair scraped again. Then a piece of paper slid across the table and fell to the floor just inside the doorway. Cal shined his light on it. It was a field log page, fresh, white. At the top was today's date. Under that, in handwriting that looked like mine, entry team arrived with 6 members. 5 crossed the first boundary. I stopped breathing. Helen said, "Read that again." I did. 6 arrived. 5 crossed. Owen laughed once, sharp and scared. "There are 6 of us." He counted with his finger. Helen, Mara, Cal, Silas, me. Then he stopped. His finger hovered in the air. He looked around. "There are—" His mouth opened. No word came. Mara grabbed her notebook. "Read your first page." We all did. My page listed 5 names: Helen Marr, Mara Voss, Cal Rourke, Owen Lark, Silas Boone. I stared at the list. Something was missing. Someone was missing. I knew it the way you know you have left a stove on, or forgotten a word in the middle of a sentence, a shape in the mind, an empty chair. I counted the team again, 5 people. But there had been 6, hadn't there? Helen's face went hard. "Everyone write the same sentence, now," she dictated. We entered with 6 people. We are not allowed to forget the 6th. My hand hesitated. "Do not write your name," Mara warned. "I know." We wrote the sentence. Owen was crying silently. He kept looking at the space between Cal and Silas. "There was someone there," he whispered. Cal said, "Name." Owen shook his head. "Name, Lark." "I don't know." Helen looked at Mara. Mara said, "We need to withdraw." Then from inside the cabin, a voice said, "Not yet." It was not loud. It was not deep. It was a woman's voice. Cal raised his flashlight. The beam crossed the doorway. No one inside. The voice said, "You have not signed out." The paper on the floor moved. Not blown, pulled slightly inward. Silas stepped forward and slammed the cabin door shut. The sound cracked through the ash trees. For the first time since entering Ash 17, I heard birds. Not real birds. A burst of bird calls played all at once, too loud, too many species, layered like someone had opened a recording library. Then silence again. Mara said, "Move." We moved. Not running. Running makes people stupid, but fast. Back the way we believed we had come. The forest repeated. Same ash trees, same roots, same gray soil. After 8 minutes, we passed the cabin again. Door open. The chair back at the table. The paper gone. Helen stopped. Mara said, "Do not engage." Cal looked at his watch. "Time?" Helen checked. 9:41. My watch read 11:03. Owen's read 8:58. Silas's had stopped. Mara said, "Use Helen's time." "Why mine?" Helen asked. "Because you are the only one not reacting." That was not comforting. We changed direction. Mara used the sun, though the sun seemed to move behind the cloud cover in ways I did not like. Silas broke branches as we passed. 5 minutes later, the same broken branches appeared ahead of us. Not just similar. Same splinter pattern, same hanging strip of bark. Cal cursed, Mara said. "No strong emotional statements." He stared at her. "What?" "Anger appears to increase repetition." Owen laughed again. This time he did not stop quickly. Helen grabbed his shoulders. "Owen!" He looked at her like he was trying to recognize her. "How long have we been in here?" "About an hour." "No," he whispered. "No, we retired." Nobody spoke. He blinked. "What did I say?" Mara wrote it down. Owen looked horrified. "What did I say?" Silas turned slowly. The clicking sound had returned. Closer now. Click. Pause. Click. Pause. Mara whispered, "Do not look for the source." That was the first real rule she gave us inside Ash 17. Not before. Inside, do not look for the source. Of course, that made me want to look. Every instinct in me wanted to scan the trees until I found the clicking thing. Instead, I stared at the ground. Roots, gray soil, boot prints, our boot prints. Too many of them. We were walking to our own tracks from several directions, some fresh, some dry, some pressed over others. Then I saw something that made me stop. One set of our boot prints ended beside a barefoot print. Not vanished. Ended. The soil ahead of them was smooth. I crouched. The boot tread was familiar. Hollow Pine issued field boots. Size 10? Mine. I looked down at my feet. Same tread, same missing chip on the left heel from a rock strike 2 months earlier. Those were my prints, but I had not stood there. At least not yet. Mara saw what I saw. Do not touch them. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it. She was right. Helen called us forward. Her voice was different now. Controlled but strained. She had found something, a tree with writing on it. Not carved, written, black marker, fresh, names. Helen Mar Maravas O'Rourke, Owen Lark Silas Boone Elias Ward, and below them, entry team complete. I stared at my name. Mara's face changed. What? I asked. She did not answer. She pointed to the order of names. In my notebook, I had written the same order. Exactly. Same spacing, same line break between Cal and Owen, where my pen had skipped over a wet spot on the page. But I had not shown anyone my page. Owen whispered, "It copied your notebook." Silas said, "No." We looked at him. He said, "It gave him the notebook." No one responded to that, because it felt closer to the truth. Helen took out her knife and scraped my name off the bark. Mara grabbed her wrist. "Do not remove text inside the sector." Too late. The black letters smeared. The moment my last name disappeared from the bark, I felt a pressure in my ears, like altitude change. Helen stepped back. "Elias?" I heard my name, but it sounded far away. Cal looked at me, then frowned. For 1 second, I saw him trying to place me. Not recognize. Place. Like I had become someone seen in a hallway years ago. I said, "Helen." Her eyes sharpened. She looked at Mara. Mara said, "Write his name." Helen opened her notebook and wrote, "Elias Ward is present." She underlined it. The pressure eased. Cal blinked. "Ward." I nodded. "Yeah." He looked disturbed. Good. Disturbed meant he remembered what almost happened. Mara turned on Helen. "That is why we do not alter markings." Helen looked at the scraped tree. "I was trying to stop it using him." "It already is." The clicking came again. Closer. This time, between clicks, there was a soft sound like paper sliding. Click, slide, click, slide, Owen whispered. "It is filing us." Nobody told him he was wrong. We finally found the contracted survey equipment at 10:18 Helen's time, or maybe 12:47 mine. It sat in a small clearing, tripod, laser scanner, 2 hard cases, collapsed antenna, 3 lunch wrappers. 3. The official report said 2 surveyors. There were 3 lunches. Mara photographed them. The camera screen showed only 2 wrappers. She lowered it slowly. Owen said, "Don't use cameras." No one argued. Inside one hard case was a stack of printed map sheets. All blank, not white. Blank in the way the gray square was blank. Like the paper did not want to accept ink. Cal checked the scanner. The battery was dead, but the unit was warm. On the side, someone had written in pencil, "Do not let it count you twice." Mara saw it and went still. Helen said, "Explain." Mara took a long breath. The contracted team reported seeing duplicate personnel. Copies? Not visually identical, functionally identical. Cal said, "Speak plainly." Mara looked at him. They believed one of them was walking with them while also standing somewhere else. Silas looked at the ash trees. "That is why the third disappeared." Mara nodded. "Possibly," Owen said. "How do we stop that?" Nobody answered. That was the worst answer. We packed the equipment quickly. Cal carried one hard case. Silas took the tripod. Owen took the scanner, despite Mara telling him to leave it. He said the internal drive might have data. Mara did not fight him. She should have. As soon as Owen lifted the scanner, the clearing changed. Not visibly, but in the way a room changes when someone enters behind you. The air tightened. The ash trees seemed closer. The clicking stopped. Then every name tag pinned to our jackets fluttered at once. No wind, just a quick little movement, like something had exhaled across us. Owen looked down at his tag. His name was gone. The paper was blank. He stared at it, then at us. "Why is it blank?" Helen said. "Write it again." He pulled out a pen. Mara shouted, "Not on the tag!" Too late, Owen wrote his name across the blank tag. Owen Lark. The ink sank into the paper, then disappeared. Owen's mouth trembled. He wrote it again. Disappeared. Again. Disappeared. Cal grabbed the pen from him. Owen looked at Cal with sudden panic. "What's my name?" Nobody spoke. Helen opened her notebook. "Owen Lark." He repeated it. "Owen Lark," Mara said. "Keep saying it." "Owen Lark." His voice shook. "Owen Lark. Owen Lark. Owen Lark." The forest listened. I could feel it listening. Then from somewhere to our left, another voice said, "Owen Lark." Same voice. His voice. Owen stopped speaking. Mara said, "No, keep going." Or the other voice said his name again. Closer, perfectly calm. "Owen Lark." Owen whispered, "That's me." Helen stepped toward him. "You are you." He looked at her. Then he looked past her. Between two ash trees stood another Owen. Not a monster, not distorted. Owen, same jacket, same equipment pack, same nervous face. Only the name tag on his chest was blank. He raised one hand. Our Owen raised his hand too, without meaning to. Mara said, "Nobody moves." The other Owen smiled. Our Owen smiled back. I cannot describe the expression. It was not happiness. It was recognition. Like seeing your reflection do something a fraction too late and realizing the mirror might be the real one. Silas dropped the tripod. The sound broke the moment. Our Owen gasped. The other Owen turned his head towards Silas, then walked behind a tree. Not around, behind. He did not come out the other side. Owen fell to his knees. He kept saying his name. Mara knelt in front of him. "Listen to me. Do not stop. Say your full name, date of birth, and one memory from before this morning." Owen tried. "My name is Owen Lark. I was born. He stared at her. "I know this," Mara said. "A memory. Any memory." He began crying. "My mother had blue curtains." "Good. Again." "My mother had blue curtains." The ash trees stood motionless. Something far away clicked once. We left the scanner. No one suggested taking it after that. For the next hour, we moved in a formation. Helen front, Mara behind her, Owen in the center, repeating his name and the blue curtains, me behind Owen, Cal and Silas rear. Every few minutes, Mara made us state a memory. Not names, memories. Helen said she broke her arm falling from a hayloft when she was 10. Cal said his first dog was named Mason. Silas said his grandmother kept peppermint in a coffee tin. Mara said she hated peaches because of a childhood fever. I said my brother taught me to skip stones on Alder Lake. Owen said his mother had blue curtains, over and over. That became our rope. Not string, not tape, not GPS memory. At some point, the ash trees began showing us things. Not visions. Not exactly. Objects. A red lunchbox at the base of a tree. Cal stopped. He whispered, "No." Mara said, "Memory?" He swallowed. "My first school lunchbox. Do not touch it." A broken yellow bracelet hanging from a branch. Helen stared at it. "Memory?" "My daughter made that at camp. Do not touch it." A white hospital blanket folded neatly over a root. Mine. My brother's blanket. From the cancer ward. I stopped walking. Mara's voice came from far away. "Elias, memory." I could not speak. The blanket was exactly right. Thin cotton, blue stripe, hospital laundry tag. My brother Jonah had died under one of those blankets when he was 19. I had been 23, old enough to know people die, too young to understand that knowing does not help. The blanket was folded the way my mother folded things when she was trying not to fall apart. Mara stepped in front of me. "Elias." I looked at her. "Say the memory." "My brother taught me to skip stones." Again. "My brother taught me to skip stones." The blanket shifted, not moved by wind, shifted like someone underneath had turned over. Then my brother's voice said, You never came back to the lake. I closed my eyes. Mara slapped me, hard. The sound cracked through the trees. I stared at her. She said, "Keep walking." I did. I have never been more grateful to be hit. At 12:09 Helen's time, we found the boundary again, or what looked like it. Cedar beyond ash, normal forest, normal underbrush, a faint line where gray soil became brown. The trucks were visible through the trees. Owen laughed, a real laugh this time. Cal exhaled like a man surfacing from water. Silas said, "Wait." He pointed to the trucks. There were 3. We had arrived in 2. The third was parked between them. White, no markings, clean. Too clean for the road we had taken. Helen raised binoculars. Her face tightened. "What?" She lowered them. "The windshield has 6 name tags taped inside." Mara said, "Do not approach." The third truck's driver door opened. Slowly. No one stepped out. Inside on the seat, a phone began ringing. We could hear it from the boundary. A normal ringtone. Cheerful. Absurd. Owen said, "That's mine." His hand went to his pocket. His phone was gone. The ringing continued. Mara said, "Nobody crosses toward the vehicles yet." Cal looked angry now. "We are 10 yards from leaving." "And it knows that." The phone rang. Owen whispered, "What if it's my mother?" Helen grabbed his sleeve. "You know better." The ringing stopped. A text tone sounded. Then another, then another. Owen's face crumpled. He said, "She's sick." Mara asked, "Who?" "My mother." He looked confused by his own answer. She has. He could not finish. The white truck's radio came on. Not our radios, its radio. A woman's voice filled the forest. "Owen? Honey, where are you?" Owen lunged. Cal caught him. The moment they struggled, the ash trees behind us clicked in unison. Hundreds of clicks, all at once, like cameras taking pictures. Owen screamed his own name. The woman's voice cried from the truck. "Owen, please! I don't remember your face." That broke him. He tore free from Cal and ran. Not toward the boundary, toward the truck. Mara shouted. Helen moved after him. Silas caught Helen. "No!" Owen crossed the line out of the ash and into the cedar. For 1 second I thought he was safe. Then he reached the white truck, opened the door, climbed inside, and disappeared. Not dramatically, no flash, no scream. He simply leaned into the vehicle, and there was no Owen anymore. The ringing stopped. The white truck door closed by itself. Then the vehicle began to fade from the edges inward. Paint first, glass, tires, shape. In 10 seconds it was gone. Only the 2 original trucks remained. Mara opened her notebook with shaking hands. Everyone read first-page personnel. I did. Helen Marr, Mara Voss, Cal Rourke, Silas Boone, Elias Ward. No Owen. The sentence below it remained. We entered with 6 people. We are not allowed to forget the 6th. But his name was gone. I looked at Helen. Her face was wet, but she looked furious more than sad. "His name was Owen Lark," she said. Mara wrote it down. The ink stayed for 3 seconds, then faded. She wrote again. Faded. Cal carved it into the butt of his flashlight with a knife. The letters held for longer. Then the plastic smoothed. Silas whispered, "His mother had blue curtains." The sentence hung there. Mara wrote, "Blue curtains." The ink stayed. Not the name, the memory. That was all we could keep. We crossed the boundary at 12:31 Helen's time. The moment my boots touched brown soil, sound returned. Wind, birds, branches, the distant creak of the trucks cooling in the shade. I looked back. Ash trees behind us. Then cedar, then normal forest. No gray square, no cabin, no white truck. Cal vomited beside a stump. Helen called base on her radio. The signal was clear, too clear. She reported that we were exiting the field zone and returning with recovered equipment. She did not mention Owen. I wanted to, but when I opened my mouth, I could not form his name. Not forgotten, blocked, like trying to push two magnets together the wrong way. My mind slid off it, so I said, "Blue curtains." Helen looked at me. Mara whispered, "Good." At the district office, they separated us. That is how official fear works. It divides witnesses before their memories can agree. I was placed in a conference room with Cal Rourke and a woman from legal whose name I never caught. She asked me to write a complete statement. I wrote for 40 minutes. When I finished, she read it, then turned the pages back toward me. There was a blank space in the middle, a paragraph missing. Not crossed out, missing. The sentences before and after did not connect. I knew I had written about Owen. The page did not. The woman from legal said, "Please do not attempt to include unverifiable personnel references." I stared at her. You know, she did not blink. "I know what can be documented." That is not what I said. No. Outside the conference room, someone was crying. Helen, maybe, or Mara, or no one. The legal woman slid another document across the table. Supplemental NDA. This one was shorter, more direct. I read the first line. "I acknowledge that Sector -17 does not exist as a recognized geographic, ecological, operational, or administrative unit." Second line. "I acknowledge that I was not assigned to enter such a sector." Third line. "I acknowledge that any memories inconsistent with official maps, personnel rosters, or mission logs may be attributed to stress response, environmental disorientation, or equipment failure." I pushed it back. "No!" She folded her hands. "Ranger Ward." "No." Cal entered then. He looked like he had aged 10 years. He said, "Sign it." I looked at him. He would not meet my eyes. I asked, "What did they offer you?" His jaw tightened. "Nothing." "Then why?" He leaned close, voice low. "Because if you fight the document fights back." I did not understand until he showed me his phone. A photo from that morning. Our team standing by the trucks before entry. Helen, Mara, Cal, Silas, me. 5 people. No gap, no Owen. But behind us, between the trees, barely visible, was the edge of a white truck. I looked at the photo too long. My head began to ache. Cal took the phone away. "Sign it," he said again. "Then write what matters somewhere it can't erase cleanly." I signed. I am not proud of that. But fear changes the shape of courage. Sometimes survival looks like surrender with a plan hidden inside it. The official report was released 2 weeks later. It stated that a joint field team investigated a mapping anomaly caused by outdated survey overlays and satellite imaging errors. No hazards found, no undocumented structures found, no personnel injuries, no missing persons, no Sector -17. Helen retired early within 3 months. Mara Voss disappeared from public agency directories. Cal Rourke never responded to my emails. Silas Boone stayed at Holopine, but he stopped speaking about the eastern interior. When I asked him about blue curtains, he went pale and told me to never say those words in the office. I did not ask again, but I started keeping my own records. Not on computers, not in official notebooks. Paper changed, ink faded, photos lied, digital files corrupted. So I used memory anchors. Objects tied to statements. A blue thread tied around a cedar twig. A stone from Alder Lake. A coffee tin with peppermint inside for Silas's memory. A small strip of black fabric for Helen's daughter's bracelet. I wrote no names on them, only fragments. The fragments lasted longer. That became my rule. Names belong to records, memories belong to people. -17 could eat records. But it had a harder time eating grief. For almost a year, nothing happened. Or nothing obvious. The public maps remained normal. The gray square did not appear. No hikers reported strange things in Cedar Basin. No one asked about missing surveyors. Life returned to its ordinary dangers. Then the new hiking app update came out. That is why I'm telling this. A private company released a detailed offline map pack for Holopine. It used aggregated GPS tracks, user-submitted routes, old timber data, satellite interpretation, and whatever else those apps use to make people feel safe, while their phone leads them into places no ranger would recommend. Within a week, visitors started asking about a new scenic area east of Cedar Basin. A blank-looking patch labeled, unsurveyed, old-growth, limited access, no established route. That label had never existed before. People loved it. Of course they did. Nothing attracts hikers like the words limited access. They called the district office. They posted screenshots online. They asked whether permits were needed. One comment said, "Looks like a secret spot. Anyone been?" Under it, someone replied, "Map says no trail, but there's a road if you zoom in." I opened the app. My hands went cold. There was no gray square now. There was a green one, beautiful, inviting. A soft patch of forest with a dotted access line leading into its center. At the center was a viewpoint icon. The label read, Ash Overlook. I stared at those words, then the app refreshed. For half a second, the label changed. Not Ash Overlook, you are here. Then it went back. I drove to the district office. Helen was gone, Mara was gone, Cal was gone. The new supervisor was a man named Jared Sloan, good administrator, bad listener. He told me the map issue was external and not our responsibility unless people entered restricted land. I told him the area needed to be closed immediately. He asked under what authority. I said safety. He asked what hazard. I said mapping anomaly. He smiled politely. That smile ended my career. Not immediately, but eventually. Because once you have seen a forest erase a person, polite disbelief feels obscene. I filed a formal closure recommendation. It disappeared from the system. I filed again. The second came back with edits I did not make. The words Ash-17 were gone. The phrase memory inconsistency had been replaced with visitor confusion. I printed it. The printer page came out blank. That night I went home and found a paper tag on my kitchen table. White, rectangular. The kind Mara had handed us before we crossed the boundary. My name was printed on it. Elias Ward. Under it, in smaller letters. Partial return. I slept in my truck that night. Not because I thought the house was unsafe, because I could not stand being inside a place that had learned how to leave things for me. The next morning, the tag was gone. In its place was a map. Not of Holopine, of my house. Hand-drawn, every room, every door. My bedroom marked with a gray square. I resigned 2 weeks later, officially for personal reasons. Another clean lie. Since then, I have watched the app. The Ash Overlook label comes and goes. Sometimes it is not there. Sometimes it appears only if you zoom in close. Sometimes reviews appear, then vanish. I saw one from a user named North Trail Mike. 5 stars, amazing hidden spot, hard to find but worth it. Felt like we had the whole forest to ourselves. I took a screenshot. The next day the review was gone. So was the user. I searched the name. Nothing. No profile, no cache page, no trace. But in the screenshot, behind the text of the review, the app had loaded a small thumbnail photo. A group selfie. 3 hikers smiling among pale ash trees. Behind them stood a 4th person, a young man in a field jacket, name tag blank. His face was turned slightly away, but I recognized him. Not by name, not exactly. By the sadness that hit me when I saw him. By the phrase that rose in my mind like a bubble from deep water. Blue curtains. That is what remains of Owen Lark. A memory without a record. A person reduced to a detail. I am breaking my NDA because the map is spreading. Not physically, maybe. Not yet, but digitally, quietly, through hiking apps, downloaded map packs, user routes, shared coordinates, screenshots. The forest found a new way to invite people in. It does not need a sign. It does not need a road. It only needs a dotted line on a screen and a viewpoint icon. So listen carefully. If you are hiking in Holopine or anywhere like it, and your map shows a place the official signs do not mention, do not trust the map. If your GPS shows a road that is not under your feet, turn around. If you enter a stand of pale ash trees where nothing else grows beneath them, leave before you start counting your group. If your camera shows fewer people than you can see standing beside you, do not take another picture. If you find a cabin with photographs on the walls, do not step inside. And if you see your own name written on a tree, do not scratch it out. Write a memory instead. Something small, something real, something no document taught you. Your mother's blue curtains, your brother teaching you to skip stones, the smell of peppermint in a coffee tin. Hold on to that, because records can be altered. Maps can lie, reports can deny, and some parts of the forest do not exist in the world until they need someone to prove they do. Last night I received a new envelope, no return address. Inside was a copy of my NDA, the same one I signed in Helen Marr's office. My signature was still there, but my printed name was blank. At the bottom, someone had added a new clause in black ink. The undersigned acknowledges that continued discussion of non-existent locations may result in administrative removal, not termination, removal. There was one more page in the envelope, a map, hand-drawn, gray square at the center, a dotted line leading in. No labels except one red dot. Beside it, 3 words. You are here. I burned the map, then I checked the ashes. For a moment, before the last corner turned black, I saw the red dot move, just slightly, closer to the edge. That is why I'm recording this now. Not because I think it will save everyone. It will not. Curiosity is stronger than warnings for some people. There will always be someone who sees a blank space and thinks it was made for them to fill. There will always be someone who follows the dotted line. But maybe one of you will remember this before you zoom in. Maybe one of you will turn off the app. Maybe one of you will see the pale ash trees and decide that some places are allowed to remain unknown. That is what the NDA was really about. Not national security, not land data, not public panic. It was about keeping a secret that does not want to stay on paper, a place the maps cannot hold, a forest sector that does not officially exist, and the people it has already started removing. My name is Elias Ward. I am writing that down while I still can. My brother taught me to skip stones on Alder Lake. His name was Jonah. My first dog was named Copper. My mother sang badly when she cooked. I broke my left wrist when I was 12. I was a park ranger for Hollow Pine National Forest. I entered Ash 17 with 6 people. One of them was named Owen Lark. His mother had blue curtains. And if any part of this recording cuts out, if my name disappears, if the story changes after I am gone, remember the detail. Blue curtains. That may be the only part of him the forest has not learned how to erase. And if your map ever shows you a part of the forest that does not exist, do not go looking for it, because it may already be looking for you.